Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.
Hey, happy Friday. Welcome back to another episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. I am your host, Nandi Oswago. We are here for another great episode. Today's really interesting. We're wrapping up our 1 month series we did on SOC2. So it's an interesting month. Like we just dedicated the entire month of April to SOC2 compliance and looking at it from various aspects. Week 1, we talked about, just background with SOC2. You could check out that episode. Week 2 of April, we went into SOC 2 compliance automation. Week 3, we brought in a AI CPA accountant, and we just went through SOC 2 from the eyes of a accountant and auditor. And then today is going to be a SOC 2 just Q&A to wrap up the series. So with all our shows, we're going to start with news of the weeks. We're going to get into that because during the various series of stocks, we didn't really jump into a lot of news articles. So we're going to do that today. And then we're going to do some Q&A questions that we got from behind the scenes. And also audience members are welcome to ask live questions. And then we will wrap up the show. So it's a really interesting month. Actually, this is like our first month just doing a series of this nature in which we just dedicated the entire month to something. I'd like to get your feedback to know what you guys thought about it, if you liked it. Something we might do in the future. Usually I do 2 episodes in a series. I don't do 4 for a month. So this was new for me. Pretty exciting. It was interesting to jump in from different aspects. It's great that we have video footage of it, so you can always go back for reference. I think a lot of the guests brought some interesting insight. Well, 2 of the guests, and then obviously week 1 was I did it solo, going over SOC 2 and the background about it. So before we hop into the show, as always, let's just get into some admin stuff, right? We're streaming live from Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitch. On a separate feed, we have Instagram going. So the Instagram guys are getting behind the scenes footage. If you want to get be part of the show or see the video, you go to the techbehindfintech.com. You'll get links to our YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, where if you ask questions, we'll stream you in so you can be part of this show. If not, you can watch live on Instagram as you're doing. Okay, cool. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to comments. All right, cool. So I have the comments feed going. So once I see comments going in from the platforms of Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitch, I'll add it to the screen so everyone can see it, and I'll do my best to answer the questions. All right, so without further ado, let's jump into some news articles of the week that we saw. And then from there, we'll hop into some other stuff. All right, first one. U.S. officials lead urgent rescue talks of First Republic. So, we were talking about, Silicon Valley Bank. That went down. We have other banks that are in that category. One of which, First Republic Bank. So, just giving a summary of it, right? It's a debate going on, not really a debate. The FDIC is looking to see if they're going to step in and save the bank or if other lenders can do so. So what's going on right here? So Wall Street banks have been trying to find a solution for First Republic since 11 of the biggest U.S. lenders deposited $30 billion at the bank on March 16th. To staunch a regional banking crisis that led to the failure of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. So essentially, over a month ago, 11 of the biggest banks deposited $30 billion into the bank. The bank is still having issues. So one of the reasons, right? So the discussions for a deal took on new urgency this week after First Republic revealed on Monday it had deposited outflows of more than $100 billion in the first quarter, Although the bank said its deposits had stabilized, it disclosed it was losing money because it had replaced the withdrawn deposits with interest-bearing funding from the Federal Reserve. So previously, they said a lot of their wealthy clients basically withdrew money from the bank, which caused the issues that they're facing. Um, Another thing about it, First Republic is contemplating a major hit and even a total loss for shareholders as part of the options that would prevent U.S. regulators from taking it over. One of the sources said First Republic shares have lost 95% of their value since the regional banking crisis started on March 8th. Other news from this article can we look at? Um, Yeah, like I said, the FDIC, the Treasury Department, and the Federal Reserve are among the government bodies that have in recent days started to orchestrate meetings with financial companies about putting together a lifeline for the troubled lenders. So they're looking at banks, private equity firms, and just additional parties. That's what's going on with First Republic. Okay, let's move on to some other news of the week. So Coinbase is suing the SEC after months of the regulator. Hold up, let's get the article of the of silence from the regulator. So it seems like last recently, Coinbase filed a suit against the Securities and Exchange Commission on Monday, asking the regulator to be forced to publicly share its answer to a months-old petition on whether it would allow the crypto industry to be regulated using existing SEC frameworks. So the July 2022 petition asks that the SEC propose and adopt rules to govern the regulation of securities that offered and traded the digitally native method, referring to digital assets like cryptocurrencies. So apparently, the SEC did not offer a specific public response to Coinbase petition, but in recent months, they aggressively ramped up enforcement actions, warning against crypto exchanges, including Coinbase. So essentially, Coinbase is now suing them, saying they want to acknowledgement of the public petition. Like, what's going to be the regulatory stance on crypto? So the 2022 petition didn't receive a specific public response from the SEC, which has pursued a spate of enforcement actions against individuals and entities in the crypto industry. Hey, what's up, Brendan? You can join her on Instagram. So that's what's going on there. Essentially, they want feedback from the SEC, public feedback, so everyone can understand where they stand in terms of regulation. So that's what's going on there. Get into another news article of the week. So it's an RSA conference going on this week. They've been running something called the Innovation Sandbox, in which they pick an innovative company. It's the 18th year, right, of the Innovation Sandbox during RSA. The top 10 Sandbox finalists have collectively seen over 75 acquisitions and raised more than 12.5 billion in investments since its inception. Previous winners include recognizable names like Imperva, Phantom, Security.ai, Puro, Talent Cybersecurity. All right, so this year's winner is Hidden Layer. So essentially, they say their win is interest shifting in the startup ecosystem as venture capitalists pivot from hyping AI ML security tools to investing in new companies to protect the code flowing in and out of AI training sets. So how do you now start monitoring algorithms for adversarial ML attack techniques? So that seems to the direction where things are going. I mean, before it was like, okay, we have, everyone's talking about the AI tools, right? But how are you actually securing the models? So that's what Hidden Layers gonna do. So what the articles also say, right? Usually when you see this type of shift in which these types of companies are winning Innovation Sandbox and VCs are going to invest in this company, others will follow suit. So it seems to where the industry is going. So that's what they say here. So now that Hidden Layer has captured the spotlight looked for a mad scramble to incubate in large startups, promising to protect the machine learning models and training sets behind tools like ChatGPT and other popular generative AI chatbots. So we understand what that means, right? So, essentially, we're all using and leveraging these tools. I mean, Chat GPT. I mean, AI has been going on for a while, but I think Chat GPT is one of the tools that brought things to the forefront, and a lot of people are jumping on it. But how do you actually secure the model? So that is actually in my studies. I'm also in school in Morgan, and that actually came up in conversation over the last couple of years with my advisor and our research team. I mean, 'cause I think that's where the it's obvious now, right? With the hidden layer winning the innovation sandbox, you're going to see that's where the industry is going to start shifting in terms of securing the actual AI models and that data. So a couple of things they're saying. Consulting giant KPMG has already spun out a venture-backed startup building technology to secure AI applications and deployment, and organizations look to a future where AI models and the data flowing through them need to be secure. Because you have to figure, right? Tons and tons of data. I mean, right now, something like Chat GPT is real public data. What happens when that data starts to be private, where it starts to be, um, you know, specific for an organization or their data behind it? They're using their internal data now. AI models companies do. How is that secured? Can that be leaked? So interesting stuff. Big tech vendors, Microsoft and Google, have also started competing in the AI ML space with Redmond first out the gate with Microsoft Security Copilot, a chat GPT powered security analysis tool to automate incident response and threat hunting. So Microsoft Security Copilot, interesting. Anti-malware vendor SentinelOne has followed suit with its own AI-powered threat hunting platform, and Google's Virus Total subsidiary rolled out a major generative AI feature upgrade. So it'll be interesting to see where the industry is going. All right, well, that concludes our news of the week. So let's get into the main topic today. The main topic is the SOC 2 Q. And like I said, this month we just dedicated it to SOC 2 Type 2. We covered different aspects. So we're going to keep today's show just a wrap up, summary of some key points, answering some questions that came up, messages behind the scenes after the show, and things of that nature. So we're going to spend some time doing that today. First one. What's the misconception surrounding SOC 2 compliance and company size? So it's a good question. Why is it important for companies of all sizes to consider SOC 2 compliance? So, one big misconception is, SOC 2 is something that, bigger organizations or larger enterprises will go after, not necessarily smaller organizations or startups. And, some people think that it's only for large companies, which is not true. It's important for companies for any size that handles sensitive customer data, regardless of size. Because right now, I mean, if you look at the fintech space, you have organizations with like 10 or less people handling tons of data from banks and from their partners. So it's not about the size of the organization per se. It's like how sensitive is the data that you're handling, and if there's leakage, can it cause damage to your customers or your third parties you interact with, or or reputational damage and so forth. So that's that's the answer to that question. Another one that came out, we answered the previous shows, but someone that sent this. Is it optional for clients, or is it like a required thing? We talked about this a lot. It is SOC 2 compliance is totally optional, right? But understand, right? While it's not required by law, it's often mandated by certain customers or partners as a condition of doing business. So it's not like a law thing that will get you, but it's one of those situations where you could be in the running with another organization to get business from from one of your customers, and that may be a requirement as part of their due diligence. They're going to ask you have SOC 2. I know I've seen a situation I've been a part of in which the fintech received their SOC 2. Now, when that same fintech is evaluating third parties that they're going to partner with, they only want to deal with third parties that have their SOC 2 compliance, because you are as strong as your weakest link, right? So, if that fintech is going to get audited now, and their customer asks, so, how do you do vendor due diligence and so forth, and are your vendors SOC 2 certified like you? You don't want to say no. You want to answer the question. All right, so we have some other people joining from Instagram. Hey guys, thanks for joining. So just to do a recap, what we're talking about, the whole month was dedicated to SOC 2 compliance, and we talked about that. So now today's show is like a wrap-up show where we're just doing an audience Q&A, and we're answering some questions that was sent in to us. And we're going to leave the floor open for additional questions, obviously. We'll stop going through the list of questions at any point in time to answer audience questions. Can SOC 2 compliance guarantee 100% security from a company's systems? Why or why not? It's a good question, but first of all, I don't think there is such a thing as 100% security. That's number one. Number two, SOC 2 demonstrates that a company has implemented certain security controls. It does not guarantee that you are 100% secure. But, a lot of breaches happen because of low-hanging fruit. I mean, and the thing about the SOC 2 compliance, it's pretty comprehensive, right? So end to end. So we start talking about things, when I say comprehensive, right? Like all full scope. So looking at, what are the different IAM, identity access management policies of your cloud environment, all the way down to the scope of, what are your practices of onboarding and offboarding employees? Those are opposite ends kind of the spectrum, but these are different controls that you have in place. So what does that mean? It means from a security perspective, yes, it makes you more secure than companies that don't have these controls in place. But it's not 100% security, right? Because you can have all the controls in place and then someone and policies, but you don't have an employee who just doesn't abide by those rules and violates your policy for some reason. And do you have the necessary things to catch that in time? So, and not only that, another aspect, right? Because I had a conversation with a colleague about this, right? It's like, okay, have SOC 2, now what, right? Is it obviously it's a continuous process. I think that's another question we're going to get into. But there's other aspects of security. What about your application security? Yeah, that's it. The SOC 2, they ask certain questions, but even certain things like pen testing, it's not necessarily mandatory, but what other things do you have in place? So I think number one rule, 100% security. I think that's I don't know how possible that is unless you just I'm not gonna say that's possible, but can you make yourself more secure, right? Because and implement a strategy with what they call security in depth. So there's multiple layers of security in your organization. So I hope that answered that question. All right, what else? Is SOC 2 compliance a one-time event or an ongoing process? Good question. So we did touch on it, right? No, I mean, so you have a SOC 2 type 1, you have a SOC 2 type 2, where the type 1 is point in time. Just how are you complying at this particular date, right? And that's point in time. So a lot easier to get. Still have to have controls in place, obviously. And it is SOC 2 type 2, where they monitor you over the course of anywhere from 3 to 12 months. Right, and the auditor will take certain samples in that time period. Regardless of whichever one you pick, you still want to make sure that your controls, that you're compliant in a continuous fashion. Because the thing about it, once you get on that SOC 2 train, you have to stay on the train. Well, you have to, but it's going to look quite odd if you're compliant. You have the attestation compliant in 2023, and in 2024 you fall out of compliance, right? That's going to raise red flags to your customers. So what does that mean, right? It means that, once you start it, every year your audit is going to come in and you want to, make sure your compliance is renewed and you're up to date. So in order to accomplish that goal, it's not going to be a one-time event, right? And you don't want a situation where the following year you're scrambling to get everything in place. If you do it on a continuous basis and you implement a structure for continuous monitoring, you could avoid that situation. And then you get you maintain your compliance when your auditor comes in and looks at stuff. What I found the most straightforward way to do that is leveraging a compliance automation tool. So putting that type of technology in place where it integrates with your cloud-based systems and so forth makes the process for ongoing security. Like, you don't want to think about it. And I mean, and the auditor we had last week, Jack Shadle, he made a good point. It's like when he said, companies come to him, what do we need to do to be compliant, right? So it's about maintaining that level of continuous security monitoring and putting the necessary controls in place so that you number one, secure your organization, because that's to be the beyond SOC 2 compliant. That's to be your main thing, to protect whether you have clients, you have the fiduciary obligation to protect your clients' data, right? And also your employee data, right? So you want to have those things in place when monitoring on a continuous basis. So to answer that question, it is not a one-time event. And to make the process easier, you have compliance automation tools. I've used in our firm where we use Vanta. We're also a Vanta partner. We had them on our show about that. They were the second week. We talked about compliance automation. So there's various tools in the market. So we feel the most comfortable using and so forth. What's another question that was asked? What steps should a company take to maintain its SOC 2 compliance? So I kind of touched up on that. You want to continually monitor. You want to have things in place, and the technology in place, people, processes, right, in place to monitor your structure. I mean, that's the best way to maintain your SOC 2 compliance that I've found. I mean, especially when you have a smaller organization with limited resources, because you have to, when you have a small organization, like a lot of the companies that I talk to are more fintechs, and they're recently funded or getting funded, so they don't have like a huge security staff or a huge engineering team, right? So you put the necessary things in place to help automate so that the person that you have looking at it can interact with engineering, HR, and so forth. Because SOC 2 does interact with HR, because it'll be great to connect to your human resource information system. So it implements in all aspects of your business. So you want to basically have something in place to help monitor. You don't want to do it. I mean, in Excel sheets and so forth, they get extremely cumbersome. I'm not saying impossible, because I've done due diligence stuff like that in the past with Excel, but in modern times, right? In today's time, I'd rather use some sort of tool that will connect to your various cloud-based and SaaS-based systems, and it makes the process a lot more straightforward. All right. Hey, got my man Nevers just joined on Instagram. One of my old college roommate. What's up? Yeah. All right. So, what other questions do we have? All right. So another question that we have: is SOC 2 compliance solely an IT issue, or does it involve collaboration across various parts? I think I touched on this with the last question, but no, it's not solely an IT issue. It does involve various departments. Like I said, looking at your onboarding and offboarding, that's more HR, but we still have to connect to. We have to see what's going on with your resource information system. So it connects to various departments. It's not solely an IT situation. It looks at your organization from a holistic standpoint. And there's going to be various questions that come up from different aspects of your organization that you have to answer to in order to be compliant. Other questions do we have? Uh, those were the questions that people emailed in. And let me think of some questions that I was asked about SOC 2. Oh, one thing that brought up last week was pretty cool in last week's episode, which is a big misconception. You're not getting a SOC 2 certification, right? So you're going to be compliant, and the auditor gives you an attestation. It's not a certification. So that's something that is good to notice. Okay. Somebody on Twitch is offering me something crazy. All right, we're not going to talk about that. It has nothing to do with the show. It's a live show, so you get random comments coming in from different aspects. All right. Yeah, I think that was it, man. That was some of the questions. I appreciate the questions that were sent in. I appreciate you guys rocking for this whole month of our SOC 2 series. Like I said, this was the first time that we've done something like this. I mean, we have done previous episodes where we do a series because some topics cannot be solely covered in only 30 minutes or 45. So we like to break them up and hit it from different angles. And I think one of the ones that we did was on buy now, pay later. I think we did a series on that, and we did a series on the online payment ecosystem. That was a really interesting watch. If you want to go back to the Tech Behind FinTech.com. Let me take this time also to shout out our sponsor. So our sponsor for the show is Strategic Generation. They are a cybersecurity firm offering pen testing, SOC 2 readiness, and vCISO services. Find them at strategicgeneration.com. Thank you for the sponsorship. So I think today I'm not seeing any additional questions from the audience. Those were the questions that we wanted to touch upon and answer. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of questions that I've got during this SOC 2 journey for the fintechs that I want to touch on. Some misconception questions. I think we did touch on a few of them. Last few episodes, you can go back and look. We did talk about a lot of different topics in regard to SOC 2 compliance. Thinking about it, I think that's it. I think this month we covered SOC 2 in various angles exhaustively. So I think we're going to I think that's a wrap for SOC 2 in terms of, yeah, I think we're good. So you have the shows, and you want to learn more about it, you can go back. Also, if you have any questions around pen testing, SOC 2 compliance, and the different things that are offered, there is a Calendly link in the show notes. Book some time to drill down for your organization. We ask that if you do click it, be a fintech organization or a business that is actually looking to get some answers in terms of your specific organization. So I just wanted to put that out there. If you have questions regarding the show, you could just DM me that, and I can address it on the show. That concludes our show for today. Thank you very, very much for tuning in. Really appreciate the viewership. Join us next week for another episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. We'll start once we solidify our guest that we're gonna have on. We'll start advertising it early so you can get update every week. Friday, 12 p.m. is our show, so you can check us out there live. techbehindfintech.com for further information. Once again, thank you so much for the support of the show. Thank you for viewing it on a weekly basis. For those of you that check in, really appreciate it. Started this 2020, and it's been going strong since. Just been consistent. So on that note, I am out. Have a great, spectacular weekend. I'll try my best to do it on my end. Cheers.
Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.